Welcome back to episode 2 of the podcast. We're going to call it the podcast until we find a name. We promised more people, so here is another person. Introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Leon.
And that's it.
And that's it. Okay, so we're going to be talking about cancel culture today. We're just going to give some of our opinions. Leon,
Hey.
when you think of cancel culture, let's just start this off. When you think of cancel culture, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Everybody.
Cancel culture is often you think of Twitter, you think of just social media, trying to stop an influencer's tirade on the internet by just basically boycotting them when they do something that you don't think is right.
So that could lead to consequences. The boycott could lead to consequences of where other people will be, at least in my opinion, kind of afraid to disagree with the people that disagree with said influencer, kind of creating, well, you now have to hate this person or else you're also wrong. And the question is, who decides what is wrong? It's just people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But just having an opinion that contradicts with someone, which leads to you being hated and therefore canceled, which is life-ruining nowadays, is just stupid. Because someone who woke up on the wrong side of the bed can decide that you're wrong and then incite hatred in people, and that's how you control them, and then they'll all just pile on it. So that's kind of the bad thing about cancel culture. I mean, the cancel culture is bad, but that's like to dig through all the other garbage, and that's the core of it, in my opinion.
Cancel culture really a lot of it I can get a lot of it is mob rule, just getting a ton of people behind you and just completely overpowering other people, but a lot of time you have to see the social consequences of the usually obviously celebrities, because usually it's not easy to see the impacts of cancel culture on nobody's really, because
Right.
there's only so many people that you want to cancel. But when there's celebrities, there's other than accounts from a decade ago, there's usually some sort of weight behind canceling them. They have to have done something wrong.
Yeah.
Back to what you said about not being able to get into a university because of something you said years ago. That still has a lot of weight, even that many years later. You're representing a company, even if you're base level intern, and if, say, you're applying for a college and they look back and they saw that you tweeted something highly insensitive, racist, just anything offensive, anything bad, that represents them if they accept you. You are part of that community, and people nowadays will use anything they can to take down a big association or start a fight. That's another thing. People nowadays like to start fights. They just fight for fun. They find topics such as I don't know, if you say anything. It's anything. You like chocolate ice cream better than vanilla. They're like, oh, that's racist. What the hell, dude? Come on.
I've had someone tell me that before. I'm not gonna say names or anything, but I have on that thought. People love to get in fights. It is a literal social stigma. It is a novelty to get offended. It is a highly coveted thing to get offended.
Because once you're offended, you're the victim, and
Yes.
people will always side with the victim.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah.
The thing with being offended, and I'm gonna sound horrible for saying this, but you have to look at this objectively. So let's use a made up character named
Bill.
Bill West.
Billiam.
Turner.
All right, Billiam Turner here says something suboptimal, right? It's not against the rules of Twitter. It's not against TOS. He's not killing anybody, but it offends a lot of people, right? that group of people are obviously
Offended.
right?
Yeah.
Because he said something that they didn't like. So that group of people then decides what's right and what's wrong. They tell that is not correct. But remember, what's offensive is subjective. Maybe what offended Group A didn't offend Group B, C, and D. Did I skip an alphabet letter?
A,
B, C, or D that you did not. No.
Correct. So maybe what offended A didn't offend, the rest of those guys, right? And say it wasn't technically against the rules. The problem is what's offensive is subjective. Who decides what's offensive? And with cancel culture, what's offensive is wrong. So that turns into whoever's offended is right, and whoever is the offender, quote unquote, is wrong. But who decides that? The victim decides that. The quote unquote victim decides that. Obviously, there are things you can't say. Obviously, there are things that are wrong. Obviously, you don't want to go out and spew anti-Semitism and racism and all that stuff. The problem is that the fact that someone can decide what's offensive and therefore what's wrong and therefore who's right can turn into it can come down from racism and anti-Semitism to other things that maybe are less bad now that can get bad in the future because people will be offended to be right for control. I think that the way cancel culture works is going to turn out bad in the future because the way it starts is subjectively, I don't like what you're saying, therefore you're wrong, I'm right, people will side with me. I think that's not judicial,
yeah.
and that's just people getting mad at each other and ruining their lives.
It's like a judge, jury, executioner kind of thing. If someone decides something's offensive, they can get you taken down from whatever it is. They can ruin basically all your future plans. They can get you kicked out of school, whatever it is, just because they think something's offensive. Other people might not. Other people might be like, oh, yeah, he said that, it's fine, whatever, don't care. But yeah, just happens. It's not good.
All right, to wind this down, cancel culture is just people getting mad at other people that can end up ruining their lives. And the problem is that there's no good way to decide who's wrong and who's right. It's the victim who decides that. And I'm not saying every victim is just playing the victim for control, but it can turn into victims playing the victim for control. And that's my fear of cancel culture. And that's my fear that this is really going to be bad for the world because it's turning into you can't say so many things. You have to abide by these laws. And who's making those rules? People. So you have to think that, is it really 100% actually offending people?
Or is it just people wanting to get offended because
it gives them attention, clout, and sympathy.
Yes.
It also turns into a lot of misinformation just to fuel the
Just to fuel the fire that is,
yes,
the
the mob rule.
exactly.
So we actually covered all the topics with looking at the script only once. That was pretty great.
That was great.
These two didn't even know the script.
Yeah, you guys just spawned in.
Yeah, you guys.
Pretty awkward.
No, you guys freeballed that, and it was pretty good.
It was good.
Huh?
There's gonna be a lot of editing.
We're gonna get canceled for this.
If we get canceled for this, it just proves my point.
The podcast.
Us and our 5 subscribers.
Cancel us. Guys.
Yeah, that's
Seven.
what we named this
Yeah, yeah.
episode. We're gonna get canceled for this.